Well. Andrew Huberman outed as a manipulating, rageful cheater. And I did not predict the rage, but I could tell he was emotionally cold. I don't usually make videos talking about people I don't like. The other person who's very emotionally cold is Jordan Peterson. I know he's handsome, I know he's got a lot of fans, but he's emotionally cold. So just saying. And Andrew Huberman is emotionally cold too. I watched him for a while and like he's too much in his head, and I was imagining how he would be like with a girlfriend, and I'm like, he's off. He's not emotionally present. He doesn't give me the warm vibes that warm vibes are I would get from someone like two of the gentlemen I've interviewed from my channel, The Dad Starting Over, Dr. Robert Glover, Date Psych. He's on Twitter. He also has a YouTube channel. He has a girlfriend. And Connor Beaton, who has Man Talks. He's also married. These guys who are sensual and masculine, these four I just mentioned, are all married with children. The men who are masculine and sensual, they typically want to be in a relationship. Now, Jordan Peterson is married with children, but he's cold. I do not know how he is behind closed doors, if he's also angry, but he's very controlling and rigid. You can hear him when he talks. Ben Shapiro, also very cold and rigid. Hey, I'll give you my analysis on some other guys if you want. And I'm not saying that I'm the best at reading people, because I get misled by people all the time too, doing my workouts. You know, I have small breasts. I'm a C cup. They just look huge. That's a natural. They look big. Anyway, so I'm going to put the article in the description of this video, but it's from the New York magazine called Andrew Huberman's Mechanisms of Control, the Private and Public Seductions of the World's Biggest Pop Neuroscientist. And it's not just the women that he was cheating on his live-in girlfriend. It's also many of his friends or people who've worked with him saying that they planned trips with him and he blew them off the day before. He left them waiting. Like, he likes to build up people's expectations and then pull the rug out from under them. And again, he had a lot of childhood trauma, but that's no excuse. And so this woman they call Sarah, she had unprotected sex with him, thinking she was the only one. But then she found all these other women. There were like 6 of them that made a group, and they started all talking to each other. And you know, he and this woman Sarah were trying to have a child together. So he was, you know, injecting her with the hormones for the IVF treatment, which you can do yourself. But he was doing it for her on their camping trip. And while he's on the camping trip doing that, he's texting this other woman, "Hey, beautiful, I can't wait to see you this weekend." And she found the text. Now, Andrew Huberman declined to be interviewed for this magazine, and his spokesperson categorically denies all of these claims, but it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Falling for Dr. Huberman. I never fell for him. I never fell for him. I just thought he was emotionally cold. I could just tell the way he talked. If you don't know who he is, here's a picture. There you go. Anyway, I hope that the link will work, because the story is free for a limited time. So I'm going to put the link in there. You can read it for yourself. I'm not saying you shouldn't like him. You know, he has contributed a great deal to research. I follow some of his stuff too, about the early morning sun, the importance of sunlight. This is not to diminish any of his accomplishments, but as a woman who's seeing him, I'm always thinking of men in terms of, you know, what are they like in a relationship? That's how I evaluate men. And when I see single men, I'm like, is this a guy I would want to date? Is this a guy? How central is this guy? I just evaluate men like that based on how masculine they are and how central they are. And yeah, the other one I do not like is Jordan Peterson. He is also very cold, controlling, rigid. Ben Shapiro, they make my stomach turn. I think my face says it all. I'm like, ugh. And there are so many women who love these guys because they're not able to see the lack of sensuality. Um, I've gotten better at that over the years, but there are times I'm sure I meet men where I'm like, maybe miss something, but there's a reason I haven't dated in 11 years. And the number of men who are masculine and sensual, they're usually already married because they want to be married. They want to be in a relationship. Like the three I told you about, they're married. And if you're a masculine, sensual man who actually is honest and authentic and has empathy and cares about people, you typically want to be in a relationship and you have one. I made a video the other day about why I'm not in a relationship, that I've learned to be happy alone. But the world is not full of these masculine, sensual men. If I met one like that, I would date one in a heartbeat. But I'd rather be alone than be with any kind of riffraff or incomplete man. But anyway, just be careful about these celebrities, because just because someone is famous or has chiseled features or is intelligent does not mean that they would make a good partner. This Andrew Huberman not only lied and he cheated, he's a sex addict. And he lies to his friends and to women. And he has these rage attacks, like rageful rage attacks. You got to read this. I got to read that part to you. Before I read that part, let me read you one of these examples. These women were comparing notes. So Sarah was his live-in girlfriend since 2018. So there was a day in Texas when, after Sarah left his hotel, Andrew's hotel, Andrew slept with Mary and texted Eve. Now, these women are all comparing notes and screenshots. They found days in which he would text nearly identical pictures of himself to two of them at the same time. They realized that the day before he had moved in with Sarah, he had slept with Mary. And he had also been with Mary in December 2023, the weekend before Sarah caught him on the couch with a sixth woman. Then here's another thing that happened where he was meeting Mary. Mary was visiting him, and he drove to a coffee shop where he met Eve. They had a serious talk about their relationship. He wanted to make it work. So he's left Mary to go meet Eve for coffee. And then he texts Mary, phone died. And then later to Eve, thank you for being so next level gorgeous and sexy. And then he texts Sarah, sleep well, beautiful. The scheduling alone, Alex, who's one of his friends, tells me I can barely schedule 3 Zoom calls a day. In the aggregate, Andrew's therapeutic language took on a sinister edge. It was communicating a commitment that was not real, a profound interest in the internality of women that was yet then used to manipulate them. He's like a psychopath. He was interviewing tell me about the dark triad, Huberman said to Bus in November on the trip in which he slept with Mary. So Bus explained the dark triad consists of 3 personality characteristics: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Such people feign cooperation, but then cheat on subsequent moves. They view other people as pawns to be manipulated for their own instrumental gains. Those who are high on dark triad traits, he said, tend to be good at the art of seduction. The vast majority of them were men. And I would consider him a dark triad person. I'm going to look for the rage part. But here, before I do that, here's another one. So this was after the camping trip, and this is the one where I was talking about before. They were on the camping trip, and he had injected the fertility drugs into her stomach. Later that month, Sarah grabbed Andrew's phone when he had left it in his bathrooms, and found that he had texted someone that we're going to call Eve during that camping trip. And that night, after he'd injected his girlfriend with the fertility hormones, he texted Eve, "Your feelings matter. I'm actually very much a caretaker. I'm back on grid tomorrow and would love to see you this weekend." Can you imagine what a fucking piece of shit he is? Trying to doing fertility treatments with his girlfriend while texting this other woman, "I would love to see you this weekend." This is Andrew Huberman that people look up to. Again, a great contribution to science and all that, but as a piece of shit, as a person, total piece of shit. And here we have again a little bit of leakage on his interview with David Buss, because he said, "Let's talk about infidelity in committed relationships," Andrew said, laughing. "I'm guessing it does happen." I'm saying we have a little bit of leakage. And Buss says, "Men who have affairs tend to have affairs with a larger number of affair partners, and so which then by definition can't be long-lasting. You can't have the long-term affairs with 6 different partners." "Yeah," said Andrew, "unless he's, and here Andrew looked into the distance, juggling multiple phone accounts or something of that sort." Buss replied, right. And some men try to do that, but I think it could be very taxing. So that's exactly probably what he did. I mean, I think he gave himself away there with a little bit of leakage. Okay. So this is Sarah, the live-in girlfriend, saying, "When they fought, it was typically because Andrew would fixate on her past choices, the men she had been with before him, the 2 children she had had with another man. I experienced this rage," Sarah recalls, "as 2 to 3 days of yelling in a row. When he was in this state, he would go on until 11 or 12 at night, and sometimes start again at 2 or 3 in the morning." Now, let's see what some of the men have to say about him. Before he was famous in 2018, Huberman invited a Colorado-based investigative journalist and anthropologist, Scott Carney, to his home for a few days. Okay, so this is Carney now reporting on what happened. The 2 were supposed to go camping and discuss their mutual interest in science. Huberman, a fan of Carney's book, What Doesn't Kill Us, had initially reached out. So Huberman reached out to Carney. The 2 became friendly over the phone and email. And then Huberman confirmed Carney's list of camping gear: a sleeping bag, bug spray, and boots. So when Carney got there, they did not go camping. Huberman simply disappeared for most of a day and a half while Carney stayed home with Huberman's dog, Costello. He puttered around Huberman's place, buying a juice, walking through the neighborhood, and waiting for him to return. Carney says it was extremely weird. Huberman texted him from elsewhere saying he was busy working on a grant. A spokesperson for Huberman says he clearly communicated to Carney that he went to work. That's what this spokesman is always saying. No, this didn't happen. No, Huberman didn't do this. Eventually, instead of camping, the 2 went on a few short hikes. And apparently Huberman did this to a lot of people. You have to read the article. He would leave people waiting. He would make plans and leave people waiting. Now, the next year, Carney sent Huberman materials from his next book called The Wedge, because Huberman is in the book. Carney asked Huberman to confirm the parts in which Huberman was mentioned. For months, Huberman did not respond. Carney sent a follow-up email. If Huberman did not respond, he would assume everything was accurate. In 2020, after months of saying he was too busy to review the materials, Huberman called Carney and came at him in a rage. "I've never had a source I thought was friendly go bananas," says says Carney. Screaming, Huberman threatened to sue and accuse Carney of violating Navy OPSEC. Anyway, he's like emotionally unhinged. And some of these very smart people, intelligent people, are a little bit emotionally unhinged. But don't let anyone fool you that this guy is a fucking maniac. He's a piece of shit. He doesn't treat his friends well. He treats women like crap. And he's a fucking ass. That's what I say. And he's outed. Now, I am just repeating what's in the magazine. I'm not accusing him of anything. Don't come and sue me. I am just simply reporting what's in the magazine. And my opinion on him is that he's a piece of shit, and that I always perceived him as a man who was lacking emotion, lacking sensuality, like he was flatlined. He's flatlined on his facial expressions. Yeah. So, fall from grace.